Welcome to the February 1st, 2021 Fruit Street Local Historic District Commission meeting. My name is Bonnie Sontag. I'm the vice chair. I'll be running the meeting tonight. And as we do with all online meeting formats, we'll begin with roll call. Maurice Southworth.
Yeah, Morris is here.
Kevin Wallace.
Present.
Bonnie Sontag here. So I'll go through the agenda and then we'll go back and take each item as they occur on the agenda. New business is 14 Fruit Street, application for certificate of appropriateness for removal of a trellis. There's no old business and there's no correspondence. General business approval of the minutes from December 12th, 2019, which is the last time we met. Other business, discussion around pre-occupancy final inspection procedure. An update on filling vacancies on the commission and any other updates from the chair or the planning director. I'm sorry, I forgot to note that Andy Port, the planning director, is with us hosting the meeting and participating as relevant. Okay, we'll go directly to new business, 14 Fruit Street. The plan will be to hear from the applicant. And we as board member or commission members can ask questions for clarification. But before we get into a full-blown discussion, I'd like to call for public comment. And once we close public comment, we'll have all the information available to us, at which time we can deliberate among ourselves and bring in the applicant as we need to. So could we please have the applicant introduce yourself and present your application?
I'm sorry, Chair, this is Andy Port. Just for clarification, did you want to take the public comment or the applicant's presentation first, just so I know what to show?
Applicant's presentation first, as we do have traditionally done in planning board meetings. So I thought it would be appropriate here as well. So let's hear from Mr. Legoulis first.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Can you see me?
No.
Oh.
You have to hit video.
I have to hit video.
Well, it's not absolutely essential. If you'd like us to see you, that's fine. Otherwise, you can present.
No, I'd like to see you and I'd like you to see me.
Okay.
So where's video?
Lower left-hand corner, maybe? Right next to
File,
unmute.
edit, view, window, and help.
It wasn't next to your unmute button?
No, my unmute button was in the middle of the screen.
Sorry, I
You
can't
have a
help you.
camera?
Wait a minute, wait a minute. I got a
Jim?
button here that says view options. Let's try that. Exit full screen, hide view panel.
No, that's about what you're seeing in front of you.
It says I'm viewing Andy Port's screen.
Correct. Can you see that picture up there on your
I
screen?
do.
Yeah.
Do you see a button that says start video?
No, to be quite honest with you, I don't.
All right. Well, let's carry on then.
It's the only time I've had that problem. I've done other Zooms and never had the problem. Let me try one other thing. Let me see if I can get a, no, I can't do that without losing you. All right, well, I prepared, this afternoon, I received from Diane the 2 letters of objection. And so I prepared a letter of my own in which I'd like to begin by discussing the application briefly and then discussing the opposition briefly. And the entire letter is only about a page and a half, and I'd like to begin by reading that if it's agreeable to the commission.
Sure.
Okay. It says, "Dear Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I am writing this letter to the commission in support of my application to remove the trellis in front of my property at number 14 Fruit Street, and in response to 2 letters of opposition to my request, which were submitted to me only a few hours ago. First, let me begin my comments in support of my application. The trellis in question originally consisted of 3 parts. And actually, you can see them right there on the photograph. The trellis itself and 2 small portions of fence which abutted on each side. The trellis and the 2 pieces adjoining it were made of plastic and were put up by me several years ago. At the time of their installation, I owned both properties at number 14 Fruit Street and number 18 Fruit Street. Recently, I sold 1618 Fruit Street, and the new owner asked me if I had any objections to removing the trellis. I told him I did not, and he proceeded to remove that portion of the trellis, which was now on his property. It never occurred to me that he wasn't going to remove the entire trellis. In its present condition, the trellis does nothing to visually improve either property. It actually makes the street look worse. As to the objections to the two abutters, Mrs. Cheston states that, quote, "The application is incomplete without a proposal for replacement. I do not intend to replace it, nor am I required to replace it. Your guideline encourages replacement. It does not require replacement. Therefore, my application is complete." Mrs. Cyrilholm states in her objection that, quote, "Removal of the fence along the street would be a loss of its historic streetscape fabric," end quote. She further goes on to call the commission's attention to section 17, which outlines the requirements for fences and railings. Nowhere does she say that this trellis meets those standards, which it does not. And we all know that there is nothing historic about plastic. In addition, the commission has already taken the position that the area between the 2 buildings constitutes a way. You cannot fence a way. Also, the commission has already allowed the project at number 1618 Fruit Street, which must have included the removal of that portion of the trellis. As to the historic significance, I cannot speak to the appearance of Fruit Street from time immemorial. I did notice that one of the pictures submitted by one of the objectors looked like it had Abraham Lincoln in the sled. However, I have owned 1618 Fruit Street since 1973 until last year when I sold it. That's 48 years. I've owned 14 Fruit Street since 1988, 33 years. I was born in Newburyport and have lived in what was then Ward 3 for my entire life, over 75 years. I used to play on Fruit Street as a child, and I can tell you from my own memory that during that period of time, there was never any fence or trellis or anything else between 16 and 14 Fruit Street. I submit to the commission that this is an opportunity for you to rid Fruit Street of a structure that is not historic in any way, and that such action is consistent with your charter and your guidelines. If in the future someone decides to install a new trellis, its design and construction will be entirely within your control and will meet the guidelines you have laid out. I have forwarded a copy of this letter today by email attachment to Diane Boisvert and asked her to include it in the record as part of my testimony in support of this application. Thank you, James Legoulas. That's it.
Okay. Any questions for clarification at this point from commission members?
No.
Okay, I have a question.
No, that was quite clear.
Okay, I wasn't clear on one thing. You mentioned that the trellis, you put the trellis up with 2 sections of fencing, one on either side.
Yeah, you can see them in the picture.
So those 2 sections and the trellis are all vinyl?
Yes.
And when approximately did you do that?
I don't know, I would say more than 10 years ago. I don't think there was even a Fruit Street Historic Commission at the time.
There wasn't.
And was there a trellis there that you were replacing, or did you just add this?
I added it.
You added it. Okay, that's all I need to know right now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's go to public comment. Andy will call on individuals who want to speak, who raise their hands. When you do, please give your name, your address, and try to limit your comment to 2 minutes.
Can I just add one comment? I'm not suggesting the removal of the entire fence, just the 2 wings that attach to the trellis.
I understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll talk about it more later. Let's hear from members of the public right now.
Okay.
The first person we have is Tara Cyrilholm. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi, so I won't repeat everything in my letter because I know that you have received my letter in opposition to the removal of the fence. I simply wanted to reiterate a couple of the points. I mean, one, I think my point is about the fact that the Fruit Street Historic District really is about not only the buildings, but the historic streetscape, and the fences are part of the historic streetscape. I realize that the fencing there is vinyl. We all realize it's vinyl, but vinyl is better than nothing, I think, in this case, that it has the appearance from a distance of being appropriate. It's only when you get close to it that it's not appropriate. And that the fact that, you know, a portion of that fencing, and I would clarify and say trellising is fencing. It's not a separate thing and not under the purview of the Fruit Street Historic District. A portion of it was removed at 1618 Fruit Street, whether that was under the auspices of the Fruit Street Historic District or without their knowledge, doesn't mean that this portion of it should be removed, and that, you know, the preservation of the streetscape is important. And it seems to me that's kind of what the historic district is all about. The fact is it must have been there before the district was put in place, and therefore it was, you know, the material vinyl was grandfathered, and now we're with it, and so that's what we have. And therefore, I think the guidelines are pretty clear that its removal should be discouraged unless it is to be replaced with something in a more appropriate material. And I didn't really hear the applicant putting forth a reason for removing it other than he'd like to remove it. And I would gently remind the commission, which I know you don't need to be reminded, that we've already been through the parking situation at this property. Of course, we cannot go back to the 19th century, but we wouldn't have the Fruit Street Historic District if there wasn't some goal in trying to preserve some appearance of the street from when it was first built. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, is there anybody else?
You have one other person, 2, sorry. First is Joe Carpenter, or sorry, Joe Carper.
Yes, thanks, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, yeah, I also agree that we need to preserve the streetscape, and that fencing has been a traditional part of the streetscape. I don't see how the trellis itself, however, has ever been part of the streetscape. So I would recommend that the commission keep the fence, but I have no problem with the arched trellis, which doesn't seem to add anything to the street. It's the only structure like that on the street. Everything else is low fence. So if I understand the applicant's request. It's to just remove that trellis part, which I, for one, at 6'5", can't even walk under it without lowering my head. And I don't necessarily think that is something that we want to keep forever for any future owner. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Next person we have is Stephanie Nicolet.
Hello, Stephanie Nicolet, 93 High Street, also representing Newburyport Preservation Trust. The trust supports Mrs. Cyrilholm's concerns about the streetscape. I understand what Mr. Carper is saying about the trellis itself, but this plan is also to remove some of the fencing, and it creates uncertainty about what will happen where that fencing is now. So I think that Mrs. Cyrilholm has raised some good questions and concerns, and I hope that the commission will address them and protect the abutters of this property in the LHD. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
See no others at this time, Chair.
Okay, we will close the public comment section of the meeting, bring it back into the commission for deliberation. Kevin and Maurice, what is your name?
Morris, are you new?
I'm going to call you whatever I call you.
He'll answer to it.
Morris, it's Morris technically, but I do answer to Maurice technically.
Well, whoever
Kevin,
wants to
put that in
speak,
the minutes, please.
whichever one of you wants to speak first, please do.
Morris, you go first.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. It's nice to see people showing significant interest in the Fruit Street historic district meetings. Most of the meetings we've had in the I appreciate your comments, and it's nice to hear different perspectives on the question. I'd just like to clarify my understanding from what Mr. Legoulis. My understanding is on that picture, the small little fence to the left is already been taken down. That was taken down when the work was done on 1618, and it was approved at that time. Right now, all that is standing is the trellis, which is the two, I believe, the two vertical posts with the horizontal bar across the top, and then the fence to the right side. They're all plastic, vinyl, whatever you want to call it. I do believe, and I did some reading today, there is a difference between a trellis and a fence. I know in one of the requests, Diane was asked about it, and she said they wanted the same. I do not believe that is true. I looked at other historic districts around the state, and there was some difference in discussion between trellis and fence. I do believe that the fence on the right-hand side should be maintained right now, and my understanding from Jim Legoulis is that is what he wants. He does not want to take down that fence. All he wants to do is take down the two vertical pieces and the horizontal bar and remove the trellis. And that's my first point. My second point is something that Terry mentioned about the driveway. The driveway is not in discussion tonight. We're just focusing on the trellis itself, not on the fence to the right, just the trellis. The historic pictures I saw, and thank you, Tara, for supplying those. I looked pretty closely, although could have missed it, but I did not see a trellis in any of those older pictures. It's definitely not a historic feature. As mentioned, it's not anywhere else on the street. There are no other trellis in front of walkways or driveways. So I would argue, and also the way Jim described it, and when he first purchased the house, there was no trellis there. He put it up. The fact that it's plastic and really is not a fence, in my opinion, I personally have no objection to it being removed. But I do understand that the application was not totally clear on what was going to replace it and what was going to happen to the fence. So again, just to clarify, my understanding is it's a removal of the trellis. The fence, small fence on the left is already gone. There'll be nothing put up in its place, and the fence to the right will remain as it is. That's my comments.
Thank you. I'm writing as fast as I can because I just realized I had to take minutes for this.
Oh,
Carry
sorry,
on.
Donna.
No, that's fine.
Could have appointed me as secretary, but it's too late now.
He did?
No, I said you could have.
Oh, well, somebody had to take minutes. Anyway, this is recorded.
Lesson learned.
This is recorded, first time ever, so I can always listen to the recording if I need to fill in blanks.
There you go.
Carry on. Go ahead. You're up.
So I agree with Morris. As long as the fence itself remains, I don't have a problem with the removal of the trellis. I don't think it brings any value to the property. It wasn't there a decade ago. It's not historic in nature. And I think once this property sells, because it is under agreement, that whoever buys this property is going to come to us with a plan. The property is in need of some updating and renovation. I think anybody who purchases that property is going to want to come to us with a proposal to address that facade and maybe come up with a new plan and perhaps put a more appropriate fence in place. But as far as the trellis is concerned, I have no problem with its removal.
Okay. I'm heading in the same direction, mostly because I learned that it was recently put up, so it's not part of the historic fabric of the street. The fence itself, though, regardless, as others have stated, even though it is vinyl right now, from a distance, it still has the look of the historic picket fences along the street. For the time being, anyway, we don't have any control over changing that. So I like the idea that Kevin is saying that the new buyer potentially could come in with some appropriate changes, but that's farther down the road. For right now, before us is the simple removal of the trellis. And if it is literally, and I would like to confirm this with Mr. Lagoulas, literally the two uprights and the piece across the top and the lovely whatever plant that's hanging off of it. If that's all it is, I can.
I'd like to clarify 2 points, if I may.
Yes.
All right. The picture, as you're looking at it, is a little bit deceptive in 2 ways. First of all, it shows both sides of it. So it looks much better in the picture than it actually looks if you took the picture today. But putting that aside for the moment, if you were looking at it straight, you would see that just as the left side, it does not go all the way to the post. On the right side, if you left it exactly like that, which I don't have any objection to, it's going to look funny. And what I was originally intending to do was, you'll notice that there's a granite post at number 16 and there's a granite post at number 12. And I was going to bring it back in line with the building and put a granite post there. Now, as you have mentioned, the property is under agreement. However, it's still subject to financing, and I won't know until probably the first or second week in March whether or not they have the financing. So we may have a new owner for it and we may not. And when I filed this application, we didn't have any agreement. So what I was trying to do was clean it up so it would look more attractive in presentation. If the new owner wants to leave the trellis up, I don't care, I'll leave it up. If the new owner wants to take it down, which I would do if I was the new owner, I'll take it down. Quite frankly, at this point, I'm ahead of the game if I don't take it down, because it's going to cost me money to take it down. It's not going to cost me anything to leave it up. So I'm just basically trying to clean up the street and make it better. And I agree with Kevin's comment that if in fact the new owner, should we have one, wants to do anything, it's advantageous to the commission, because then you get control of the whole thing and you can put up whatever you want. I think you're ahead of the game by saying I can take it down, but I leave it to your discretion at this point. I mean, it may not affect me at all in either way. I'm just trying to do the right thing here.
So if I might ask you, are you suggesting that you might want to withdraw this application given the current situation?
No, because you see, right now, it doesn't look, you're not looking at it the way it actually looks. If you can picture it without the left-hand section, it looks very awkward. It looks strange because it just doesn't, there's no symmetry to it. So I would want to take it down. If the property doesn't go forward, I would want to take it down.
There's a photo of it right now, the way it looks right now.
Yeah, it's a little better. And you can see on this one that there is some distance, not very much, about a foot or two, between the right-hand post of the trellis and where the house actually is. And that's where you should put a granite post.
Right, but that's not in your
If you want me to leave
proposal.
it like it is, I will. I don't care.
But to Jim's point, this may not go together. Your deal may not see a true sale at the end of it. So yeah, I would say full steam ahead with the application. If a new buyer comes in and says, no, let's leave it alone until I come to you with a full plan, then that would make sense. But no, I agree with Jim. Let's sort of run with the application until any buyer says, no, stop, I want to leave it alone for the time being.
Works for me.
So could I have clarification that I got it right? It's just going to be the two uprights and the piece across the top that are coming off. No section of any of the fencing is going to come down?
Yes, that's correct. I don't plan on that.
And if we're in agreement that the trellis doesn't have any more significant historic significance than having been put up, in our recent memory, then I don't see how it fits as just the trellis, not the fencing, in with the historic nature of the streetscape. Do either of the other commissioners see that differently?
Yeah, my only question is, will that small piece of fence stay up? I don't know how it's attached to the trellis, and there's no end to it now. It's just going to be sticking there. So
yeah, you can see it on that one.
So you're referring to the fencing?
The small piece on the end that's attached to the trellis, will that stay up because it will not have a end piece because the trellis will be removed?
Some kind of a post there, Morris.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't just leave it with no post.
Right. So the question is, what post will go there? Because now you're adding something, right?
Well, if we don't make any other changes, it would be a post that was similar to the post on the right of it or the post at the very left of it. I mean, you want to match them.
Match to what's there.
You want to match the posts that are there.
The problem with that is that those two sections that each one that you're gonna put a new end to with a post are vinyl, right?
They are.
Yep.
Very hard for me to accept a vinyl post.
Well, what would you put there?
I know, I'm struggling. Thank you. You got my message.
All right.
As a member of this commission, to approve a vinyl post there, it's almost like we got to do it the way it looks and not the way it ought to be, because of course the fencing should be replaced with wood, but that's not part of the application.
Let me ask you this. What if you took the existing, see the right-hand post of the trellis? What if you cut that right-hand post down to the height of the other post to the right of it and just put the cap on it?
Yeah, that's the best solution.
Yes, that's great.
All right, we'll do that.
Yeah, okay. Any other considerations we might have missed, because we did have some serious comments from the public that I don't want to ignore. Do you want to review those, Morris and Kevin, while I finish writing up my notes here? And
Yeah,
see if
I
they've
was
got
reading
anything else?
Tara's letter again, and some of the points. I agree that our goal is to preserve the historic quality of the Fruit Street neighborhood. I believe pulling the trellis part down only still preserves the historic quality because it wasn't there historically. I do believe a trellis and a fence are different and not the same. You mentioned traditionally open and low fences were located along the sidewalk. We're maintaining the low fence as is, albeit it's plastic, unfortunately. And I'm trying to look at what else, Terry, you wrote. Again, removal of the fencing itself, the removal of the fence itself would be lost historic streetscape fabric, I do agree. And we do want to maintain the fence, but as I mentioned, I believe the trellis and the fence are different. Right now, there is no plan for putting anything else in its place. So there is no new work, but I truly hope that the new people moving in, or whoever it will be, will come to the commission, like Kevin said, with a request for doing some work.
And to Joe Carper's point, there's no other trellis on the street, really. This is the only one. So in my mind, it's a bit of a buck tooth as you drive down Fruit Street. It's the only one, and there's nothing attractive about it. If it were historically significant in any way, shape, or form, then I would probably think differently about this, but I don't.
So just to clarify, there is a slight addition that we're potentially going to approve, which is 2 caps, one on either post.
One cap.
One cap, Bonnie. The whole left side's going.
Yeah.
If we approve this.
The left side fence is already gone. There's only one cap.
The left side of the trellis.
The one we're looking at right now doesn't exist between the
correct
granite post and the trellis.
Yeah, Andy, show you the photo. Andy, show you the photo, please, if you can. The gray one.
I think I remember that one. So I was trying to understand the distinction.
See, it's gone.
Okay. Fence on left is already gone.
Yeah.
So it's only a cap on, so the one thing we would be approving to add would be a cap to, on the one post to finish off that line of fencing.
Correct. And you've got cap selections on the top of the trellis. So you just pop one of those off and put it on the remaining post.
You know, Kevin, that didn't even occur to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll send you my bill.
Yeah. So take a cap from the trellis and put it on the post. Okay. So if we've covered all the bases, I could take a motion for an approval of a certificate of appropriateness with the specification that the trellis is removed and a cap is put on the outstanding post. Does that cover it?
I believe so.
Do you want to make that motion?
So moved.
By whom?
Kevin.
I'll second.
Okay,
This
second.
Lord.
I'm sorry.
Yes, by me. Kevin.
And second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, and I'll take roll call on that. Morris?
What do you mean by take roll call? Yes, I second.
You have to say yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Kevin?
Yes.
Bonnie? Yes. Okay, all present vote yes. And we are done with that. So Mr. Lagulish, you will get your certificate when it's processed through the planning office. And again, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I go now?
You can.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. All right. General business, moving on to approval of the minutes for December 12th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, motion to second.
Okay, Kevin, Maurice. All right, discussion. I was not there, but I have suggested some edits to include in their language that specifies our findings, and the language is taken strictly from the guidelines, because I felt that you needed to justify the decision. And did you both read that? And do you have any comments about my suggested edits?
No question
Yeah.
regarding your edits.
The edits were good. The only other correction is it should be Elizabeth Southworth, not Elizabeth Southworth.
It should be what? E-L-I? Morris, what's the correction? I'm sorry.
Sorry, my wife's first name is Elizabeth, not Elizabeth.
L-I-S?
Lizabeth.
That's a new one on me. Good. All right, thank you. I'll correct that. I'll add the other edits and send it on to Diane for the record. I'm sorry, we didn't take a vote. And you two are the only ones who can vote on it. So,
Right.
Maurice?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And I abstain. All right. Other business. The first item came from a note I made so long ago that Maurice didn't even remember that we had talked about it. There were some issues about applicants who received decisions from us, then getting occupancy permits. Somehow, I don't even remember what the example was. Before, it seemed that a review of the work had been done in accordance with our decision. Now, normally, that kind of review is done by the building commissioner, I believe. But we were talking about the possibility of one of us should be out there to look at that. And I'm just not sure about the appropriateness of us getting involved at that level. But this had been discussed a while ago, and so it hadn't been resolved. And so I put it on here just for us to think through maybe some advice or
I agree. I don't think
heads up or something. I mean, I don't remember. Do you remember what the issue had been? Had something been approved and it wasn't for occupancy and it wasn't according to our decision?
It had to have been 1618 Fruit Street. That's the only new construction or renovation we've approved. Everything else has been occupied at the time of our review. So I don't remember specifically what the issue is, but shouldn't that be the responsibility of the building inspector who's signing off?
So.
I mean, they should have our decision and you know, the terms of our agreement at that point. So why would we go and police this? That's a building inspector issue in my mind.
Yeah.
Is there any way we should work with the building inspector or kind of remind them to read and check up?
I think worst case, we put a line in there that it's in compliance with the Historic District Commission approval.
It feels like there should be something like that, to be honest.
Yeah, there should be some follow-up, at least on the sign-off. There should be the approval. There should be a line item for the F8, you know, for the Fruit Street Historic District Commission approval that the building inspector has to check off.
Oof, I'll have to check on that to see if it's already there or if it is advisable to have it added. Because it may be just normal operating procedure whenever there's a special permit. And this comes into that category, that they check the decision to be sure everything is as it was required. But I will check into that as a sign to make sure that whatever the process is, I can just get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Filling the vacancy on the commission. Andy, are you with us?
I am, just I had to unmute myself.
I know. There is one question. We have a potential candidate who hasn't yet confirmed that they want to be a candidate. And their one question is, if they should have a client who is in the district, would they simply be able to recuse themselves? Or is it not a good idea to come on the commission at all if they think they might ever have a client there?
No, I think it's fine to sort of have the one-off situation. I think if someone was going to systemically have clients in a given area that's under regulation, then I think it might be inappropriate to be appointed to that particular board. But if it's just a one-off or an unlikely repeat sort of thing, I think that's perfectly fine. And as you suggested, and I think as chair on other boards, that members can simply recuse themselves for the record right up front at the beginning of any particular item on that project, so that it's clear for the record that they are not participating in the voting on that matter that they might be working on. But yeah, I think if it was, this is a relatively small jurisdictional area, but if it was, if it was somebody going to be doing work for every single property in that district, then it might be a problem.
Yeah, well, you never know. But they've already had one client there and they're potentially going to have another one. But that's over the span of maybe 3 years or something. And we are
right. And I think they could recuse themselves as necessary.
Yeah, and this person is an architect. We don't have any expertise in that area on our commission, and it would be more challenging, let me say, to find an architect to be on the commission if we had to say absolutely no client ever on Fruit Street. So this is helpful. Okay, I'll get back to that person and tell them that what you told us. The other thing is that we do have another candidate who is being interviewed by the mayor, or already has been. So that's moving forward, and we should be notified officially when she decides and puts forward their name for approval by the city council. But that takes 2 city council meetings. So we're probably looking at sometime out into the end of March for that.
Well, given the frequency of our meetings, that shouldn't be an issue.
Right, right. So that's moving forward. All right. Any other updates from anybody?
No.
I'm not aware of anything. No.
No. I don't have anything either. Andy, do you have anything for us?
Sorry, I had to mute myself. No, nothing I think is relevant for the Free Street District Commission. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Kevin. And do roll call. Morris?
Yes.
And Kevin?
Yes.
And Bonnie? Yes. See you hopefully before another year is up.
I suspect
Thank you
we
all.
will.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much. Thanks, Andy. Thanks,
Have a good
Kevin. See you soon, hopefully.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Andy.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.